Thanks for coming along to Five from the Archive with Stephanie Johnson. This is one which I know lots of people have been really looking forward to. Stephanie is internationally renowned for her creative photography. Stephanie,
Mhm.
thank you so much for coming along today. And I don't know how best to introduce you, really. You're my friend, you're our friend, you're our family's friend. We've had the wonderful pleasure of photographing and meeting up with you at least twice in different locations. And fingers crossed for another meetup this year as well. So I'm not sure how best to introduce you other than a wonderful human being, a
Oh,
fantastic creative photographer, and a huge part of the community. So thank you so much for coming along today to share your five from the archive with us. And it's a
oh,
real pleasure. It's a real
well,
pleasure.
thank you. Oh, that was a wonderful introduction. I really appreciate that. Yes, definitely a friend, friend of the family, family. We
Yeah,
could
of
even
course.
meet family. I mean, Colin is like my grandson, really.
Of course,
The
of
the
course.
only grandchild I'll ever have that isn't really from a, from a different mother that's not my daughter.
Well, just for those people who are listening, I'm sure I could probably try and find a video clip of Stephanie teaching Colin intentional camera movement and him holding the camera steady but wiggling his bottom. And that's how he gets his intentional camera movement is
Oh.
steady camera, bottom wiggling. I'll never forget that.
Oh,
So
he's
thank
so
you very
cute.
much. Thank you. Thank you. And he thinks the world of you as well. So, Stephanie, as I've asked with everybody, really, obviously I know well, I think I know quite a lot about your background and your inspirations, but I'm really interested in sort of your background in photography, what got you to where you are now, and perhaps even a little bit of where you see yourself going, because I think there are really exciting things on the horizon as well. So please do give us a little bit of information about yourself and your history and where you're going, Stephanie, if that's okay.
Oh, sure. Well, thank you. Yes. Well, I began doing traditional landscape photography back in the 1990s, actually, with film SLR. And over the years, evolved into using digital cameras, was doing um, landscapes when I could. I was doing sport photography. I did some portraiture types of work with my daughter and her friends and schools, when she was in middle school and high school. I always had a passion for landscape photography, and so when I started traveling to Ireland in 2015 to photograph the landscapes there, I just fell in love with it. And but I'd always have a hard time getting out with my camera when I would come back to Iowa, which is where I live. And so when I started to see ICM in 2017, that gave me the idea that maybe I could get out with my camera in my local environment and see it differently and play around with my camera in ways that I hadn't ever really thought of doing before. And so that's how I got into ICM, really, because I found it was a really creative and artistic way to express myself and to transform really the Iowa landscapes into something that was much more beautiful than what I was seeing literally. And then it became more about how I felt when I was out with my camera, more so than what I'm actually seeing literally when I'm out with my camera. And so that's how I kind of fell in love with ICM. And over the years, it's just progressed from there. And I'm always looking to push myself forward and to evolve my creativity. So I'm always looking for ways to do that. Even since 2022, my ICM just in general has evolved. But in the last year specifically, my creative work has evolved significantly. And so, yes, there are a lot of new and different things that I'm wanting to do moving forward. And so it's exciting times, really.
Yeah, thank you. And we're lucky enough that we've seen you in action in Iowa near the frozen lake. I remember we did that live broadcast, and it
Yeah.
wasn't until you were driving back halfway through, and I thought, I'm so happy she didn't fall in that lake live when we had all those people watching.
Uh, well, I think the ice on the lake was thick enough that I
Yeah.
could have walked out there and it wouldn't have it wouldn't have mattered.
It was the teacher in me. I thought, oh my goodness. Thanks very much, Stephanie. Now, are you happy to share your five images, if that's okay?
Sure.
We're looking at your first one now, and this is new to me. So I'm really interested in why, not why this one, I can see why, but I'm really interested in the story behind this one as well. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Mark. Yes, I decided for my 5 from the archive, I decided that I wanted to select images that are from my archive, but are more recent. So these have all been created within the last year. They show the evolution of the work, of the creative work that I've been doing. So they won't look like my standard ICMs or my standard multiple exposure ICMs, but they are pushing those techniques further, pushing the boundaries of that work. Last year, early in 2024, I started feeling this need to do more with my creativity. I needed more from my ICM. I needed more from my camera work. And I just decided to allow myself to start playing around in Photoshop, actually, and taking some of my ICMs and my multiple exposure ICMs into Photoshop and playing around with them there. So this was one of the very first images where I did that. And the original image was just a 2 exposure, multiple exposure ICM that I created in San Miguel in Mexico in September of 2023. And it was just an MEICM of a colorful door on a colorful building in San Miguel. And when I started layering and duplicating it and playing with the layers in Photoshop, it felt like I was creating these tumbling blocks of color. I just loved that effect. And this one is special to me for that reason, that it was one of the first images where I was taking my camera work and pushing the boundaries using Photoshop to do something new and different with it. And it opened up a whole new world of possibilities, really, for me. So
Mm.
that's why I selected this one.
The beautiful, beautiful color palette here is almost pearlescent and reflective or metallic in nature, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, it does have that kind of fluorescent look and feel. Some of that comes from the blending modes in Photoshop. I can't remember specifically which blending mode I used in this on this particular image. When I did it in the camera, the original multiple exposure ICM image was using dark blend mode, but I am pretty sure I have 2 or 3 different layers here in Photoshop where I played around with other blending modes to create this effect. But it really was something that helped me see the potential of pushing my creativity using the digital darkroom where I hadn't really allowed myself to do that previously. I'd always been very rigid in my thinking that I had to do everything. I wanted to do everything in the camera as much as possible. And because of this period early in 2024 of feeling like I needed more from my artistry, I just decided I was going to allow myself that freedom to play more in Photoshop.
Mm,
And I'm not an expert in Photoshop by any means, but I am learning and I'm finding a lot of joy in that process as well.
mm, I can see and the notion of playing is really important and worth mentioning that it's the journey as well as the outcome. That's
Oh, exactly.
vital.
For me, it's
Yeah.
always about the process more so than the end result.
Yeah, super. Thank you. Thank you.
Sure. Let's move on to this one. So this is another one where I have done a lot of the work in Photoshop, but it is blending images that I created obviously in the camera, and some of them are sharp elements, actually sharp exposures, along with multiple exposure ICMs. I'm drawn to images that have lettering. Even if you can't read the words or you don't know what the words are, there's something about the lettering, and also because I lived in Okinawa, Japan for 9 years of my life, this lettering here, the Japanese characters on this particular image, they come from a metal sculpture that's on the University of Iowa campus in front of the communications building. And so I just went there to play with taking some straight shots of that sculpture and then decided to start blending them together with some ICMs and multiple exposure ICMs to create this effect. And I just really loved the colors that come through, those silvery, shapes that you see in this particular image, that's actually from a building on the University of Iowa campus, the Iowa Advanced Technologies Laboratory. That's the building, and it was designed by Frank Gehry, the famous architect. Playing around with that building, that's a place I go and shoot over and over and over again all throughout the year, trying new and different things. And so that's one of the
Mm.
cool things about ICM too, is that you can work with the same subjects over and over again.
Absolutely. And the thing that I imagine also really appeals to you, I wouldn't put words in your mouth, but you're blending the contemporary where you're living now and the sculpture with the history that you have with Japan and that environment as well. And it blends that beautifully, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah, I love that, definitely, because I do have fond memories of the years that I lived there, and I love a lot of things Japanese.
Mm.
I love the sensibility of the Japanese culture as well. So, yeah, that made this one really special for me as well.
Yeah, thank you. Also, the use of text that very often can detract, but doesn't at all in this instance. It's a lovely piece. It really is. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that. Well, moving on to this one. This is more than one image, so I apologize. So I'm giving you more than 5 from the archive, but I really wanted to illustrate a point with these other 2 images here. The main element, of course, is the image on the right, but something that I started doing last year as well was creating cyanotypes, making physical prints using chemistry coded onto paper, coating paper with light sensitive chemistry, and then exposing that paper with botanical elements on top of them to the sun or UV light. I started playing around with that technique and I fell in love with making cyanotypes. But then I also decided that I wanted to do more with my cyanotypes than just create them. I wondered what would happen if I blend them with some of my camera work and my multiple exposure ICMs. And so I love to do photograms using botanical elements. So my cyanotypes are usually using some sort of botanical element. And then combining those or layering those with botanical elements that I've used to create camera images, multiple exposure images, I think that just really blends nicely together. And so this was one of the first times I did that blending of the cyanotype with one of my multiple exposure ICM images. I just was like, oh my goodness, I love this. I love the effects that came through in that. And so that pushed me forward again to start doing more of that type of work. So this was
Mm.
another one of those examples where a whole new world of possibilities was opened up for me because of this idea of trying to blend these two processes together in this way.
Thank you. I will let you sneak in these extra 2 images because they are absolutely worth it. What you've created on the right-hand side is almost a mix of seasons. I'm not sure if that's just me who sees that or whether you see that as well, with the kind of colder aspect on the outside edge and then the warmer aspect in the middle. Maybe that's just me, but what a beautiful way of combining these. That must have been a real wow moment for you.
It was a wow moment. And yeah, I do like that cool and warm contrast in that particular image as well. So, yeah, that was definitely one of those moments when I saw that unfolding in Photoshop where I just thought, okay, this is something I've got to do more of. So, I
Mm.
have been doing a lot more of that kind of process for sure.
Yeah, thank you. Really, I bet quite addictive, actually.
Yeah. Oh.
Thank you very much.
So this next image here is one that I did at the end of 2024. And what I love about this image is that it has a very festive feel to it. It feels like a celebration to me. And it's very abstract. I love the colors, but what the subject is just something so simple. It was a lamp in my daughter's living room that I started playing around with in the camera to do multiple exposures, rotating the camera around the subject, and then selecting those images in my camera to start new multiple exposure sequences with and playing around with color temperature. And then just taking some of those that I did in the camera into Photoshop and layering them together and playing around that way. I think in all, this is about 72 total exposures.
Wow.
If you count all of the numbers of exposures from the multiple exposures,
7 point.
but I just really thought this was another one of those moments that I felt it propelled me into another layer of my own artistry and creativity because I love abstraction for one, and this gave me a feel that I hadn't created before. It gave me something that I hadn't seen from myself before, and so that was really exciting, and it's given me a lot of ideas for how to do more of this kind of work moving
Mm.
forward as well.
And I wonder whether the fact that you picked this up from a lamp in your daughter's house, which is absolutely incredible when you think about it, I wonder whether it's the experience in trying the new things that made you then look at that lamp and thought, I'm sure I could make something from that. Or isn't that interesting? Because I imagine the lamp didn't look anything like this.
No, not at all. No, I had been playing around with another lamp on my fireplace mantle.
Mm.
I've been playing around with that lamp a lot in the last year as well. So when I was at my daughter's house over the Christmas holiday break last year, watching her cats while she was away, her and her husband were away, I just thought, let me see what I can do with this lamp.
And I think that's the power in this kind of, I'm not going to say photography as such, but this kind of work is that you can look at the mundane things in and around you and create something from that mundaneness. I'm not sure if that's the right phrase, but 70 plus exposures or 70 plus layers. Wow.
Yeah. The layers in Photoshop wouldn't have been 72
Mm.
because the image files themselves were blended together in
I
the
see.
camera,
Yes,
some
yes,
of them,
yes.
not all of them, but
Yeah.
total for the number of times I clicked the shutter,
Yeah.
I would say it's about 72 exposures. But yeah, and mundane I think is a good word, or ordinary, because with this kind of creative work that you can do with the camera and then also pushing that in Photoshop, you absolutely can create beautiful works of art from very ordinary, simple, mundane objects and subjects that if you're only just willing to be open to play and explore and experiment, you're only really limited by your own imagination. The sky is the limit, really, and it just opens up an infinite number of possibilities.
Thank you. I think we just have to get over that, don't we? Get over that barrier to start with, and then it must come much more easily. I'm just speaking for myself. I think I
Yes.
need to get over that barrier.
Well, it doesn't happen overnight, and
No.
certainly I still have my own barriers that I need to get over too as I continue to evolve. But if we're always willing to do that, always willing to play, and always willing to evolve and expand and grow and learn. Learning is a big part of this as well because I didn't know much about Photoshop before I started doing all of this. So I've had to learn Photoshop, and as I do more work in Photoshop, I learn more about it.
Yeah.
And that just helps me in the evolution of my own artistry, really.
Yeah. Fantastic. Thank you. Absolutely wonderful work. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Well, this last one is another ICM, multiple exposure ICM and cyanotype blend. So, one of the aspects of this is a physical cyanotype print. You can see the ginkgo, the outline of the ginkgo leaves. And then I layered that with one of my multiple exposure ICMs where I used bright blend mode and took and used the upside down technique, my upside down technique for the MEICM image. But when I layered that with this particular cyanotype print, I just fell in love with the textures and the colors that came through. And I don't know, it just really blew my mind when I created this particular image because it was just so different and so unique. Each of the images in themselves, the cyanotype in itself was nice, and the MEICM image in and of itself is nice, but then putting those two together just made it something completely
Mm.
more than
Mhm.
the two elements individually, if that makes sense.
And I wonder if that also then adds to your own enjoyment of it because you enjoyed the two separate parts so much that when they combine, they become far more than the sum of their parts, if you like.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's true because certainly you could take a lot of images into Photoshop that maybe weren't your favorites and blend them together and create something really magical. But having taking images that are special just in and of themselves into Photoshop and layering and putting them together and blending them, I think that does add to the joy of the process, and then the end result becomes that much more meaningful for you as well.
Thank you. Now, I know in cyanotypes, I've not tried them personally, but a lot of cyanotypes I've seen often or have to have a very blue sort of tone. In these examples, you've shown a wide range of color tone. Is there a particular tonality that you're drawn to? Is there a particular, is it warmer colors? Is it perhaps cooler colors? Do you find yourself commonly drawn to a particular zone, if you like, of coloring?
Well, I like color just in general, so I play around with the different blending modes, and Photoshop are going to give you different colors depending on which blending mode you select. But the cyanotype on this one in particular, the actual cyanotype print, it was quite blue. But with the ginkgo leaves themselves, under where those had not let the paper be exposed, because when you put the botanical element on the paper, and put it out in the sun, anything underneath those botanical elements isn't going to expose. The paper's not going to expose in those areas, so that turns white when you wash the prints. This one did have a very blue color to it because of the cyanotype chemistry, but when I started layering it and blending it with this multiple exposure ICM in Photoshop, the blending mode that I selected for the layering process removed a lot of that blue color from the cyanotype. So that's one of the joys of the blending process is that you can play around with that color. But even in my cyanotypes, when I am doing them, just making the prints themselves, I try to push the boundaries of the chemistry to see if I can create different colors of blue. Yeah, for sure. I'm mixing the chemistry in different ways to get different kinds of blue, different tones of blue, different ranges of blue in my images. So there's a whole experimentation process that goes into that process as well.
Yeah, thank you. And I think we can see that with the texture and the depth of the image as well, because it looks like we could, again, it looks like we could touch this, but it has real depth to it, real
Oh,
depth to it. Thank you.
well,
Thank you.
thank
And
you.
I must ask, if I dare, because these are combining your passions, two of your big passions, how long was the editing or processing on this? How long was that play? Was it very, oh, I know exactly what I'm going to get here? Or did you sit down with your cup of tea and a biscuit, cat on your lap, and thought, here's my day?
Yeah, that's how I approach all of my creativity, really. I don't ever pre-visualize anything. I don't really ever go into anything, whether it's going out with my camera to create or whether it's sitting down in Photoshop and starting to play with blending and layering images. I never have any kind of expectation or pre-visualized idea. I just start bringing stuff in, putting them together, seeing what happens. If I don't like it, then I bring another image in. And yeah, I don't know exactly how much time it took me this particular image, but I would say I can sometimes spend up to 3, 4, 5, 6 hours working on just one image in Photoshop. Which is one of the reasons why in the past I haven't always wanted necessarily to go and do this work in Photoshop because I like to be out with the camera, but I'm finding now after having spent so much time and having 300,000 images in my Lightroom
Wow.
catalog, that maybe I can spend a little more time working in Photoshop and I don't have to necessarily go out as often as I have in the past because I have images to pull from and I can do something with those that have just been sitting in the dark, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
in a folder on my computer for so long.
You must run out of wall space when you print these or when you display them. Or, it feels like such an odd question, but how do you decide among all of these? Because obviously all of these 7, I think we've seen today, the individuals as well as the combined one in the middle. I would have considered these to be wall worthy. So, what is your approach to preserving these and getting them off that digital dungeon? Are you printing? What's happening with that, Stephanie?
I haven't done any printing, to
Oh,
be
right.
honest. I need to
You
probably I
do.
mean, I know. I That's one area where I would like to do more
Mm,
printing, but and I have a great printer myself. I've got a professional grade Canon Pro 1 printer from way back several years ago. I think that's now been replaced with the Canon Pro 100 or
right.
something like that, but yeah, printing is something I've never really gotten my brain wrapped around
Yeah.
to do it properly the way that I would want to do it.
Mm.
So I have been negligent in that area.
That can be your target.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you. Stephanie, thank you so much for taking the time to share these with us. Absolutely beautiful images and seeing images that show your current direction of travel as well. To see that evolution is wonderful, as always.
Well, thank you. And you and I've talked about this previously. I have a vision and a desire to redefine ICM. I'm certainly going to continue doing ICM in the traditional sense of intentional camera movement, but I want to put more of a focus on creativity than a singular technique. And so my vision has been for the past several months, last year or so, to redefine ICM as intentional creative moments. And when I started thinking of ICM in that way, I think that helped me let go of a lot of my own self imposed restrictions that I had been rigid about in the past, like working in Photoshop. By letting go of some of that and focusing just more on the creative aspect and allowing myself to play no matter what way I might be doing that, whether it's
Mm,
with the camera or with a camera-less or in
mm,
Photoshop. That's helped me move my own artistry forward
yeah. Intentional creative
significantly.
moments. Intentional creative moments is a world-class idea. I'm
Oh, thank
very
you.
much looking forward to hearing more about that as well. Stephanie, thank you so much for taking the time. I know you've put a lot of effort into this, and I know you are really busy at the moment, going all over the place. So thank you so much for taking the time to share your top 5 stroke 7 images, but we'll forgive those 2. And I look forward to very much seeing the next stages in your journey on Camversation and on all kinds of different places because you're loved worldwide. So I think we
Oh.
see you all over the place.
Well, thank you. I'm not sure that I deserve all of that credit, but thank
No,
you. I appreciate that for sure. And I'm so glad to be a part of Camversation and to be a part of this community. And I appreciate all that you do
no, thank
as
you.
well for, the photographic community, the creative community, the artistic community. You've built a really wonderful platform for people to come together and share creative ideas and learn from each other and to just build each other up. And that's a really beautiful thing and really important, I think, in the
Mm,
world that we live in, for
yeah.
sure,
Thank you. Thank you very much for being part of it. I really appreciate it. And really, because I think you've been involved for nearly 5 years now, it's kind of almost helping me set it off. So thank you so much. You've played a huge
Aw.
part in it. You really have.
Hmm.
So until the next time, thank you very much, Stephanie.
Oh,
And I
thank
will
you,
see
Mark.
you soon.
All right. Thank you, Mark.